All right, so the first fight back in March, depending on who you ask, was either close or not that close. Dom, what are your expectations for the rematch here Saturday night?
Well, I'm expecting a much closer fight because I think that Pereira's coming in a little healthier. We've heard rumors that maybe he wasn't as healthy in the last one. He might be less healthy now for this fight. It's not like he trained any less hard.
Right.
But we're going to assume he's coming in healthier and more prepared mentally because he's not as busy as he was before that last fight. But I think we're going to see somebody who knows how to use his offense more. I think Pereira's going to go back to the drawing board and say, man, I didn't let my offense go. I let him control the pace of the fight. I let him control the distance of the fight. And that's why he lost. Not to mention Ankalaev and his feints and his fakes in between the strikes is what really made a difference to strike at the level of Pereira. So the question is, can Pereira deal with that rhythm and get forward and let his offense go instead of waiting for Ankalaev? That's really what it's going to come down to.
Yeah, I'm going to come down on Alex in a way that I'm doing it to build him up on Saturday night. I don't think that he took their first fight very serious, and he didn't have to say that. Just watch what he did. He was traveling all over the world. He was at every pay-per-view I worked at, he was there hanging out in the crowd, so I don't know how hard you're actually training. We heard the rumors that he was injured. We've seen his physical therapist bring up the things he was dealing with. I just don't think he took it that serious. I think that he overlooked Magomed Ankalaev and didn't think that guy could really push him. And then he found himself in a fight that he couldn't win in the shape that he was in. I just think that we're going to see more of the same. I just think we're going to see it at a higher level. I think the output's going to be higher. I think that he lost a lot. All these champions know exactly what comes in. And Dominick Cruz can speak to that better than anybody. There's a lot of things that come with being a champion that you immediately lose when you're not. Sometimes that discourages people and they kind of fade away into obscurity, and some people it motivates them to go get it back.
Yeah, well put. So going into the first meeting, Chael, there was a healthy competitiveness, but not necessarily this friction verbally between the two athletes. And you, as the sort of master orator of all orators during your career, you were able to occupy headspace in opponents. Do you think this is any sort of factor in terms of what we see Saturday night?
This all started a week ago. Everything was cool in the gang. This is the #1 title fight that nobody asked for. None of us asked for it. Dana White didn't ask for it. Ankalaev asked for it. Yes, you heard me right. Ankalaev beat Pereira, went to the post-fight press conference, and called out Pereira. Ankalaev knew that Pereira was the bigger star. He knew that people weren't going to be accepting of this. He knew he was going to have to do rounds 6 through 10, if you will. Max Kellerman has a quote, and I'm going to quote him, and this is from a boxing standpoint, but it carries over to MMA. If a younger fighter beats an older fighter and they rematch, the younger fighter will beat him again, only quicker.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a lot of sense. And there are just so many different storylines intangibly leading into this fight. Pereira's relative health in that first meeting. You can go to ESPN.com right now. Brett Okamoto has a great article. He talked to Poaton's physical therapist. There was a stress fracture in his tibia. Certainly impacted his conditioning and his preparation. I know, Dom, you guys are going to give a prediction later, but does this factor into your handicap of the rematch, knowing that Pereira was not healthy and only, quote-unquote, 40% of his normal self?
Well, as somebody who's fought on antibiotics, who's fought with broken hands moving into title fights, who's fought with stress fractures in the feet, whatnot, this is part of being a UFC champion. You come into the fight not healthy more times than not because the UFC keeps you very active as champion. If you're not fighting as champion, then they get mad. You got to stay active. And so they kept Pereira extremely active. So I don't think that it's a doubt that he was beat up going into that fight. But he signed the dotted line knowing what shape he was in, just like I did on some of my losses for the title. When you sign the dotted line, it doesn't matter if you're hurt. You signed. Now, how do we know he's not more injured now and he's just not going to talk about it? How do we know? And then after the fight happens, we say, oh, well, actually, he was on 2 doses of antibiotics this time.
Right.
Well, yes, no, maybe so. Bottom line is I think he's going to show up at his best. And because they fought, they're going to make adjustments. And he's going to show up better in this fight against Ankalaev.
I truly believe that Ankalaev overperformed. He was better than I'd ever seen him. He took more risks. His output was higher. He was switching stances. We didn't really see him do that a whole lot before. Obviously, he wrestled more. It was 0 for 12, but that's 12 attempts,
right,
which are just as good as a takedown with a guy that strikes like Alex Pereira. I think that Ankalaev moved forward in this fight more than he does typically. He kind of just hangs back and holds ground. Him moving forward made Alex have a really tough time striking. But when you've seen Pereira start to move forward, he started to land a little bit more. So I expect to see more of that. I think Pereira was 40% might be crazy. But if he's 70, that's still a huge difference. So if Ankalaev overperformed, and I believe that Pereira was at 70, and he comes in healthy, I think we're going to see a very, very close fight. And I see it ending in a finish. I really do.
All right, predictions later in the show. At least to this point, the analysis hasn't necessarily showed up at the betting window. Alex Pereira north of plus 200 right now as the underdog come Saturday night. All right, welcome back to UFC Live here in Las Vegas. So it all comes down to this for Cory Sandhagen. At long last, that elusive shot at the world title, owned, of course, by the massive superstar Merab Dvalishvili, Anthony Smith. He's making his third defense already this year. Fans are excited about this matchup. How come?
Well, Merab, he's gotten more popular as time goes, but I don't think that he's changed his style so much. I think that we're just leaning into I think he's showing more of his personality.
Yeah.
So I think we're leaning into that, and we're seeing him grow. He's getting finishes. He's beating better and better guys. I think a lot of the names of the people that he's beating has helped grow his star. But also Cory Sandhagen's exciting, and I think a lot of people, just like I think probably a lot of us, think that Cory Sandhagen needs a finish to probably beat Merab, that he's probably unlikely to win 25 straight minutes on his way to a decision.
Right.
If he wins in the way that he has to, it's exciting. We've seen the flying knees, the spinning heel kicks, the jumping weird elbows. He does some really incredible things, and I think people are excited about that.
So we talk about these in-fight antics with Merab Dvalishvili. We brought it up in our fighter meeting, and he said the only thing he regretted was kissing Sean O'Malley. He doesn't regret going over and talking to Mark Zuckerberg when he's grappling the Olympic gold medalist Henry Cejudo. But you know, John Wood at times has talked about in-fight focus. What do you make of Merab's antics, Chip?
I actually admire it because I could never do it. I was so tired in every single fight, I couldn't put out that kind of energy. I couldn't imagine not being fully focused. I couldn't imagine speaking. Just for example, the only thing I was going to do was listen to my coach and drink some water in between. I tell you that because some guys can stay relaxed. You have to be a certain level of relaxed and in the moment, almost taking like a sparring session to have this kind of an attitude, and it can be very helpful, and it is for Merab.
I mean, he can balance fun and focus, and John Wood doesn't want to eliminate all the fun. I think few fighters have as much fun in octagon as Merab Dvalishvili. Now, most observers would argue our colleague Dominick Cruz as the greatest bantamweight of all time. So because you are here and because this matchup was actually on the horizon at some point during your career, how would you go about trying to beat Merab?
I really thought I was going to face him. You know, there was a time in my career where I was asking for that fight against Merab because I saw how many wins he had, and that was the guy. And the way that I'm fighting Merab, if I'm in this situation as Sandhagen with very similar gifts, I mean, this guy moves his feet well. He switches stance. He's better at striking than most of us. I like to move forward. If you're Sandhagen, you got to go to the body early and use your offensive striking to the body with feints and forward pressure to keep Merab moving back. That mixed with when Merab does shoot, keep him off the single legs, keep him off of your back, keep him off the front headlock. And no matter what, you don't have to stop Merab from grabbing you. You just got to create scrambles when he does grab you and not allow him to sink on top of you and get any kind of momentum with pressure. As long as you keep it nonstop moving flow, even in the grappling and scrambles, now you got Merab constantly working, never really getting comfortable. You keep Merab uncomfortable for 5 rounds. You keep him missing shots. You keep him moving and trying to grab you on the angles. And you put your long combinations together. You stay on the outside. You fire your jab. You keep your kicks going. You stay at kick range. And these are all things you can do to beat a shorter wrestler, which I did against all Team Alpha Male for many, many years.
So Dvalishvili is certainly not a one-trick pony, right? He's the most decorated takedown artist in UFC history, 97 takedowns thus far, but it's not as though he isn't well-rounded. I'm putting you on the spot, but who do you think has more ways to win this fight?
I love being on the spot. And by the way, my teammate Ricky Simone is one of the few guys to beat Merab. So I've been through a training camp when guys are focused on him. I've watched the tapes and sit and studied him. Listen, Merab is coming out and telling everybody he wants to win this with striking. I don't believe him in the least. However, if he was forced to strike, it's not like I can tell you somebody that's outstruck Merab. He keeps his chin down. He's very basic. He throws punches, and he moves forward. I like Merab all around. I mean, if you're asking me who knows more about mixed martial arts, I think that it's Sandhagen. But if you can understand the weaponization of pace, like George St. Pierre did, for example, like Randy Couture did before that, for example, I think Merab is about as intimidating of a guy as we've got under contract.
We are absolutely loaded on pay-per-view Saturday night at UFC 320, Ankalaev versus Pereira 2. You know about the championship doubleheader, but you want to talk about chaos in an octagon, I submit to you Yuri Prochazka, really against anybody, but in this case, it'll be Khalil Roundtree Jr., also a featherweight eliminator of sorts between top 10 ranked Josh Emmett and Yusuf Zalal. All right, my heavy lifting is done. Now it's all about our esteemed analysts. It is time for predictions brought to you by DAV, keeping our promise to America's veterans. All right, co-main event. Merab Dvalishvili says he will be the first man to knock out Cory Sandhagen. So will the champ do what no fighter has done and actually knock Cory out?
Merab's not going to knock him out, but Merab is likely to stop him around the 4th round. I think it's going to be a TKO situation, and sometimes people get those confused. I think he's just going to be on top a little bit too long. He's going to wear Cory down, and ultimately the referee's going to have to pull him off.
Yeah, I think Merab gets the decision by out-controlling Cory Sandhagen for most of the fight like he's done in all his other 13-fight win streak.
Yeah, I'm going Merab as well. Cory just hasn't shown his ability to stop a high-level wrestler. We've kind of seen similar matchups with him before, and that is the one singular chink in his armor.
Yeah, that Umar Nurmagomedov film is pretty damning, but we'll see what Sandhagen can do. He's a big underdog, a little bit tighter in the main event. Rematch for the light heavyweight title. Alex Pereira, of course, believes without a shadow of a doubt that he will reclaim the title against Magomed Ankalaev. Will we hear and new or and still?
And still, and by the way, it's going to be the best news that we get. The main thing I want as a fan, by the way, I want Pereira at heavyweight. Everywhere I go, people want to talk about the White House card. Let me give you a surprise. Pereira is going to be a player at heavyweight for that card. If he loses this fight, I think he becomes a bigger star in defeat, but Ankalaev does leave the champion.
I love that Ankalaev called this fight out as an immediate rematch. It shows the guts he's got and how sure he is he can win. I do believe Ankalaev gets the win. I think he does similar fight that he did against Pereira in the first one.
If I believe that Ankalaev overperformed, and I believe that Pereira was as injured and as sick as I do, then I have to believe that if he comes in healthy and 100% in focused and taking Magomed Ankalaev very serious, then I have to believe that Alex Pereira wins this fight.
Wow.
So I'm going and new.
All right, Poetom plus 210 or so. We'll see how it all shakes out. Ankalaev, 21-1, hasn't lost since 2018. We'll see the extent to which he meets his match come Saturday night, and we hope you will join us wall-to-wall for our coverage at UFC 320. The early prelims kick off at 6 p.m. Eastern on the ESPN app and Disney+. Then continuation of the prelims at 8 p.m. Eastern on ESPN News, as well as the ESPN app and Disney+. Main card, 10 p.m. Eastern, only on the ESPN app. 2 belts will be on the line. Magomed Ankalaev and Merab Dvalishvili are the incumbents. We'll see if the challengers, Cory Sandhagen and Alex Poetom Pereira, can do anything about all of that.